This is my first sketchbook ever. I began it when I was 12 years old, and while most of its contents are exactly what you would expect out of a tween, some of it I believe is worth revisiting and even a little redraw. This is the first thing that I can ever vividly remember being proud of. Partially because of its subject matter, but also largely because I had a kick of drawing with only a ballpoint pen and having no ability to erase, and I thought that was just the most goated thing ever as a kid, and I was proud of myself for being able to do that. Something I can vividly remember as a kid was that art was pretty much the only way that I was able to break into social circles and be seen by my peers. While I didn't go to public school for most of my childhood, I did attend for roughly half of the years that a typical child would, and one of my core memories actually was drawing a lion on notebook paper, bringing it to class the next day, and having one of my peers immediately inform me that I must have gotten help from my dad in order to make that, which one is hilarious because you clearly don't know my father, Sam, or whatever your name was. And two, pretty funny because it evoked an emotion within me that I can only imagine is similar to what modern digital artists feel when somebody accuses their work of being AI generated. That's gut-wrenching. Admittedly, I did get a little bit ahead of myself, so I already started on this redraw, but it's a very rough sketch, so you'll be able to follow along for all the rendering, I suppose. I guess what inspired this piece, if anything, was a small obsession that tween me had with this idea of the perfect romanticized stay-at-home wife, which is what we would now refer to as a trad wife on the good old interweb. I liked to parody that idea in the privacy of my art, largely because I was insecure, even as a young child, about how much that role was encouraged for me to one day take up as my calling, which I will clarify is a wonderful calling so long as it doesn't come at the expense of your individuality, which as a child was pretty much the only way I'd ever actually seen it be carried out. Which, you know, it's a little bit ironic for me to be admitting my uncertainty that I held toward this lifestyle or this expectation, because that is such a far cry from the personality that I decided to adopt when I was a teenager. It's a little bit like that meme template that's been going around where, you know, you converse with your younger self, and your younger self is like, did we finally do XYZ? And there's this in-between stage of you that thinks that you're past that, or you don't want XYZ anymore, or you've changed as a person. And then hopefully there's a third stage that acknowledges that child, that inner child, and says, yes, we did do all those things that you wanted to do. Finally, ignore her, as in the middle state. Okay, anyways, my side tangent is over. I hope you enjoy my redraw. And with that, we are on to the next. A common theme, if you have not noticed by now, is that my tween self was just horrendously edgy. The reason this sketch pokes out to me, though, is because I recall writing up a whole backstory for this character, and I might have even begun working on a short story, and although I never followed through with completing, there was just so much imagination that went into this, and I envy my childhood self for being able to formulate that with ease, because as you grow into adulthood, man, it is hard to be imaginative. Around the time that I moved out on my own, I definitely experienced a pretty significant skill regression and just creative drought. And I think this is pretty common. I think a lot of people experience this when you're getting into adulthood. It's just hard to keep that sense of childlike imagination. But the last few years of my art journey, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been just trying to get back into the rhythm skill-wise. I've been trying to get back into producing art and enjoying producing art, and then I've kind of let the imagination come second, and I don't actually think that that's been necessarily a bad idea. I think that that can really work. Fortunately, I can feel myself finally being released from from this drought, seemingly for good, largely because of posting on social media. That's helped a lot, and consuming other people's art has helped bolster my imagination to similar levels of what it was when I was even a child. I'm attempting to find my roots a little bit, I guess I would say. I used a lot of fan art and replicating scenes, and like I said, very just skill-based art, not necessarily imaginative, original ideas, to get myself back into the rhythm and wake up my muscles a little bit. But now, I'll say, for the first time in years, I'm waking up with real, original ideas again, which, by the way, I cannot wait to begin sharing with you once I actually put these ideas to a canvas. But yeah, and you've probably had just about enough of my ramblings. So once again, I hope you enjoy my redraw. And I will do one more to finish the video off. I am cheating a little bit here. This last drawing is actually going to be a self-portrait. I have actually never drawn myself before. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I've done little characters. I've done little, like, you know, comic strips among my friends, or inside jokes, or me in like a group setting kind of thing, but I've never actually just drawn myself to draw myself before. I've never put time or effort into a portrait that is an accurate representation of myself, I suppose. And I've actually had a shockingly large number of people request this on my Instagram stories. And I don't know, it's just never really spoken to me. And I wish I had a deep or nuanced reason as to why, but I don't. It seems very fitting for my generation though, doesn't it? I mean, considering our very close relationship with irony as a vehicle of expression to alleviate the horrors of being vulnerable. Obviously, myself included. But anyways, I guess I got so used to seeing my face in the mirror every day that I don't know, I just didn't feel any pull to express my individual face. I think that also maybe has something to do with just a lack of life experience, and now that I have experienced a lot more, I realize that some of the most impactful, meaningful, touching work can come from putting yourself in the work. Nonfiction can be creative. Nonfiction can be about you. Nonfiction can include a caricature of you telling things as it actually happened to you. And I think that that is the equivalent of a self-portrait in the traditional or physical art world. Physical, I meant traditional as in a image, if that makes sense. But anyways, this actually leads to probably one of the least common art opinions that I hold that not a lot of other artists hold, which is I do not mind drawing other people at all. Like, you know, in grade school when people ask, oh, can you draw me? With very little exception, this absolutely never bothered me in all my years, despite the many memes made about the subject, inferring that a lot of artists feel otherwise. And to be fair, I do understand why a lot of artists don't like drawing every person who requests a portrait. It 100% makes sense in my brain, but for some reason, my brain just doesn't operate that way, because maybe I just don't take it that seriously is kind of my own running theory. Since they're not paying me or anything, it seems like an easy risk-free commitment to make someone like me a little bit more for 10 or 15 minutes out of my day. This is another one of those things that I just don't have a deeper intellectual explanation for. But anyways, by now, you may have noticed I am cheating yet again. This is not, in fact, a straightforward and accurate self-portrait as promised. Instead, this is my final form, La La Loopsy me. Next on my to-do list is a Littlest Pet Shop rendition of Archie. God, I love that cat. Where is he? He comes when I call him. Have you ever known of a cat to come when you call them? Oh gosh, you're just the cutest little thing. Goodness gracious, he's adorable. And as promised via Instagram, I'm actually here to answer some of your burning questions because I listen to the people's demands. And also because this is great, low effort padding to add to the video. Do you use oil? Do you use acrylic? And which do you prefer of the two? So I use 6 tubes of Apple Barrel brand Walmart acrylic paint. I don't know why I'm so stubborn about using my cheap paint. I definitely should get some nicer stuff. My medium is water. I actually did spend pretty good money on getting oil paints. They might not have been that good quality. I don't know, they were off Amazon. I bought them when I was a kid, but the stickiness of the tubes just revolted me so much, and it felt so unmanageable that I used them for one painting, which didn't turn out good, and then I never used them again. Again, maybe this kind of ties back to my whole like low risk thing. Me choosing acrylic over oil, I mean, because I really can't be mad at a painting not being successful if the total cost for the canvas and the paint combined was like $2 and a Jelly Belly. What are your controversial food opinions? So I cannot discern the skill level associated with the food that I am eating like 90% of the time. Or maybe I can and I just don't care. When I eat food, I'm like, oh, okay, this is food. And sometimes I'm like, wow, this is really good food. But it's always just a baseline of being food. People at the table will be like, this is good, but it's a little dry. This is good, but there's not enough salt. I'm like, I'll eat it. Did you ever draw your own Pokemon growing up? Yes, this is more true than you know. My childhood, oh no, eyelash. Oh God. My childhood best friend and I actually developed a game in which we would have a deck of Pokemon cards. And so I think we actually had 2 decks. Yeah, we had 2 decks, and both of us would flip a card off the top of the deck, and whatever it landed upon was a Pokemon that we had to combine with the other Pokemon. We would merge the 2 cards together and create this little hybrid species, and then draw them out in a sketchbook and like hide our results from each other so we could only see it when we were done. And we had to come up also with a name for them. It was a lot of fun. It was good. What are your favorite artists / inspirations? I wish I was more up to date on modern artists. I'm mostly just pretty decently versed on the classics, I guess. My all-time skill inspiration is John Singer Sargent, because he's just astronomically talented. My favorite artist in terms of getting me to think of new ideas would be Magritte, and that's kind of just on the classical side of things. On the more modern side of things, the only artists I am like invested in at the moment are John Brosio and Frank Frazetta, for different reasons. They're both pretty much up there. American or Japanese Godzilla? Okay, hold on. What are the differences between American and Japanese Godzilla? Japanese, it is slow, unstoppable, imposing like a mountain moving. American, it is aggressive, reactive, and fast like a giant lizard. Ooh, definitely the Japanese. I didn't even know that there were that key of differences. The adjectives used are almost like fate. We associate fate as a positive word in present day. In medieval and classical literature and storytelling, it's very dreadful because it is inescapable. It's almost like a doom is what it's associated with. And that's what I like about Japanese horror, is that a lot of it is inescapable and very large and imposing without having to dress themselves up too much, if that makes sense. I love Japanese horror. Not art related, but do you watch or play any tabletop RPGs? I have played D&D. I know how to play D&D. I'm not actually as well versed on it as I wish I was, and it's been a little while since I've even like touched a campaign. However, I love tabletop, not RPGs, but just tabletop games in general, especially skill and strategy-based games. I love Magic the Gathering. I recently got into Catan, which is insanely good. I'm wanting to learn the Star Wars, I think it's Star Wars Unlimited or whatever that card game is. Looks amazing. Okay, anyways, not gonna get too into that side tangent. That's really the last question that was in the response box. There were a couple more, but some of them were like such big questions that I could make whole videos about them, and some of them were kind of like not really questions, or they were already asked before. I don't think I have anything more to give you people, but I hope you liked this video. I tried to do something a little bit more laid back, hence why I'm on my couch, or more like below my couch. I wanted to use the coffee table. Okay, that's all I have. I hope you have a great day. Bye.